All right, let's briefly talk about posture and see and sort of analyze posture from the biomechanical standpoint. Okay, so when we talk about posture, it can be defined in a number of ways, but primarily posture is an alignment or orientation of the body. One thing I would say here is that when I'm talking about the posture, I am primarily looking at the human body from the spine. As you guys all know, that spine forms a major part of our upper body, and then it gives the shape to our body. So posture basically is an alignment or orientation of the body. Okay. When we talk about posture, we usually talk about a static position, and we use the word ideal instead of normal. We don't basically, it's very hard to say what is normal here. So that is why we use the word ideal for the posture instead of saying that this is a normal posture or not. Okay, so you can see here, this is sort of an ideal posture, and then you see these two positions, that have red spine, and they are not considered normal, and I'll talk about that. Why is that? So when we talk about the spine, spine has four curves in it, and these curves are neck lordosis, chest kyphosis, loin lordosis or lumbar lordosis, and sacral kyphosis. Now I'll ask you this question, that why do we have four curves in the spine? Okay, why it is not a straight bone like many of our other bones? There are a lot of small bones here that stack on each other, and you have this a very intricate design, and that design also has curves in it. Pause this video, write your answer in the comment section, and I'll also answer that. These four curves have a specific name given, and I'll talk more about this when we cover spine biomechanics. But primarily, just remember, there is a lordosis curve and there is a kyphosis curve. Neck has lordosis, and then lumbar region has lordosis. Chest has kyphosis, and then sacral region has kyphosis. Okay. And then, as I said, we can talk more about this later. So looking from the side, we what do we call a normal kyphosis and a normal lordosis? So this is the commonly referred angle. Like if the thoracic kyphotic angle is between 10 and 40 degrees. Okay, like you can see here, TK is thoracic kyphotic angle, kyphosis angle. And if the lumbar lordotic angle is between 40 to 60 degrees. Okay, I'm gonna erase it so that you guys can see it here, that it is 40 to 60 degrees. If that is the angle maintained for these two curves, then we call it a normal posture. But if that goes above and beyond this described angle, then that is not a normal posture. Okay, now talking about the head here, this is sort of a forward head posture here that you can see. So this is the normal posture here. Okay, you can see the nice line, going through, dissecting through the external auditory meatus, that is your external ear. But when this external ear goes forward from this line, then that's your forward head posture, and you can see here that it is going here. So as this head keeps going forward, this is 12 lb, 32 lb, and 12 lb, 42 lb is the amount of force that is to be produced by the neck extensors to maintain this posture. So they have to produce more force, to maintain the posture, to basically hold your head, in place, and it increases when you go into the forward head posture. And we have talked about this, that why this is happening. I want you guys to explain this to me in the comment section, and the hint I want to give you guys is MSK levers. So go back to the MSK levers video, musculoskeletal levers video, and then come up with an explanation of why the force to hold the head, is increasing when you're going into the forward head posture. Okay, then looking at some of the more examples here, so this is first a good posture, then you have a forward head posture. This is your thoracic kyphosis. Okay, so it is more sort of like, your spine is bending at the thoracic region, that is your thoracic kyphosis here. This is your lumbar lordosis here, which is sort of like, let me give this a different color here. So this is your lumbar lordosis here. Okay, now lumbar lordosis is like, your spine is becoming extended, it's going into the extended position at the lumbar region, and kyphosis is your spine is going into the flexed position here that you can see. Okay, so lumbar lordosis is that, and we'll talk more about these, in a little bit. And then sway back posture is another one where, you are sort of like, swing on the backside, that is your sway back posture. So this is your good posture, or you can call it your ideal posture, and then you are going into the different postural abnormalities. Now, looking at the posture in the sitting position as well, you sit upright. We have talked, a lot of people, talk about this in, their workplaces. A lot of ergonomics. This is the right. This is an this is the wrong posture here, and this is the right posture here, and this is also a wrong posture here. Okay, so now you can see in this two one, there is a lot of lumbar lordosis here. Okay, she's going into the lumbar lordosis here. Okay, and then here the back is straight, it's upright, um, the shoulders are upright, and this is the right posture. And this one here again, this is a lot of bent here. Again, you're going into kyphosis, and you're also taking your head in the forward position. So that is your wrong posture here. Okay, so that's just the analysis in the sitting position. Now, one more concept that I want you guys to think about is anterior and posterior pelvic tilt, and how that is affecting your spinal posture. Since we are talking about the spine from the anterior posterior, since we are talking about the posture from the spinal context here. So anterior and posterior pelvic tilt, what happens here is that in the anterior pelvic tilt, that is basically your pelvic is sort of tilting forward here, that you can see here, and that is associated with lumbar lordosis here. Okay, and similarly, your if your pelvis is going posteriorly, then it is associated with straightening up of your lumbar lordosis. Okay, now few things that are important here for you guys to know are, what sort of muscles go into tightness, and what sort of muscles, are actually lengthening in this. So if you think about this triangle as your pelvis, then, on the front end of the pelvis you have hip flexors. Okay, that is your iliopsoas muscle. On the back side of the pelvis you have the hip extensors. Okay, and on the top here you have low back extensors. Okay, and here on the front of the pelvis um, you have your abdominals. Okay, all right, so this is your normal alignment of the pelvis here. Now what Okay, so this is your normal alignment of the posture as we discussed. So now what happens in anterior pelvic tilt? Okay, so anterior is basically your pelvis is tilting on the anterior side. So let's say this is what your anterior pelvic tilt is. So your normal pelvis has tilted forward or anteriorly. So what happens here is that your hip flexor now would become tight. Okay, your hip extensors have lengthened. Okay, and your abdominals lengthened, and your low back extensors have become tight as well. And at the spine, what you would see is that, you have a lordosis that is developing. Okay, sorry, a lot of words are here. So hip flexors become tight, abdominals become lengthened, and your hip extensors become lengthened, and then also your low back extensors become tight. Okay, and the opposite of that is happening in your posterior pelvic tilt. In your posterior pelvic tilt, your hip extensors would become tight, your hip flexors would become lengthened. Okay, I would write HE, hip extensors, HF, hip flexors. Sorry about that, and then your abdominals, A, would become tight, and then your low back, E, extensors would become lengthened. Okay, and your spine would basically go into reduced lordosis position here. Okay, so this is the alignment of that. Now we have a plumb line, or we call it plumb line, or imaginary plumb line, that is used to look at the posture. Okay, I want you guys to just look at this picture, and to see how this plumb line is going through all the body structures, and that's where, roughly we say that, that's where your ideal posture is. Okay, we start this from the calcaneocuboid joint. You can also start this from the external artery meatus or the apex of the coronal suture. Okay, so that's how all the anatomical structures, through which it passes, and it needs to be closer to these structures, to say that this is a normal posture. This is more precisely, this is an ideal posture here. Okay, so now that was the picture of the anatomical structures. Now this is basically your surface landmarks that would help you understand from where this line is passing: through the earlobe, through the shoulder joints, through the joint midway of the trunk, through the greater trochanter, interior to the slightly interior to the knee joint, slightly interior to the ankle joint. Okay, so this is your surface landmarks to look at that plumb line. Last thing we talk about is scoliosis. Scoliosis is different than kyphosis or lordosis. This is sort of a sideway curve that develops in your spine. This is purely pathological. There is no normal scoliosis in our body. Okay, so that's what you see here, that there is a curve here. Because of that curve, this is the curve that you see here. Because of that curve, you have uneven hips and you have uneven shoulders. One of the signs of the scoliosis is right hump that develops on the side of the scoliosis, that your right scapular hump or the right shoulder hump, that develops. And you always name a scoliosis based on the convexity of the spine. So basically you see here, uh, that this spine here is convex on the right side, so this is a right sided scoliosis. And then similarly you would always see the hump on the right side where the convexity is. Okay, so these are some of the important things about the scoliosis. Scoliosis can be structural or scoliosis can be functional. Okay, so a structural, there is a difference between a structural and a functional scoliosis, and that, as the name says, um, has like, if you go into a standing position, and the scoliosis is present, but if you lie down it disappears, that's your functional scoliosis. Okay, the structural scoliosis is something that would not disappear by anything. That's a great change in your structure, and there's a there's a true change in your vertebrae, so the scoliosis, whether in the standing or lying down, would not change. Okay, so the functional and structural name is given, based on different positions and how scoliosis appears. So functional scoliosis, since it disappears when you're lying down, so that basically shows that it might have developed because of a muscular imbalance. But structural scoliosis, on the other hand, is purely skeletal. It's based on um, the problem in your bones. So it would not change. So that's the difference between the two. I think that's pretty much it. Sorry I went more than 10 minutes. The goal is to keep them within the 10 minutes. Okay, thank you very much. Put your comments in the comment section, and I want to see, especially people talking about that forward head posture that I discussed in this class. Thank you. Bye.